share the prayers. Yeah.
Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining the Wednesday evening class in the Bhagavad Gita. We'll start with Jai Radha Madhav, and then from there we will go ahead. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Prabhu, is it possible to have Shadgoswami Ashtakam?
Okay. You want to go to, let me see if we have it here in our list. Otherwise, I will go to KK songs.
So this is a very beautiful song. Give to get the blessings and mercy of the six Goswamis, who are the pioneers of Krishna consciousness in our movement, who were empowered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to spread the Sankirtan movement all over the world, by whose grace we are here. Okay, we can start. Krishnat Kirtana Gana Narthana Paro Premamritabdo Nidhi Dhira Dhira Jana Priya Priya Karo Nirmatsaro Pujito Shri Chaitanya Kripa Bharo Bhuvi Bhuvo Bharavahantarako Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyugo Sri Jiva Gopalako Nana Shastra Vicharanaikanipuno Sadharma Samsthapako Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanyakaro राधा कृष्ण पदारविन्द भजना नन्देन मातालिको वन्दे रूप सनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीव गोपालको श्रीगौराङ्ग गुणानुवर्णनविधौ श्रद्धा समृद्धान्वितौ पापोतापनिकृन्तनौ तनुभृतम् गोविन्दगानामृतैः आनन्दाम्बुधिवर्धनैकनिपुणौ कैवल्यनिस्तारकौ वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालकौ त्वक्त्वा तूर्णमशेषमण्डलपति श्रेणिं सदा तुच्छव भूत्वा दीनगणेशकौ करुणया कौपीनकण्ठाश्रितौ गोपीभावरसामृताब्धिलहरी कालोलमग्नौ मुहुः वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालकौ कूजत्कोकिलहंससारसगणा कीर्णे मयूराकुले नानारत्ननिबद्धमूलवितपा श्रीयुक्तवृन्दावने राधाकृष्णमहर्निशं प्रभजतौ जीवार्तदौ यौ मुधा वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालकौ साङ्ख्यापूर्वकनामगाननतिभिः कालावसानीकृतौ निद्राहारविहारकादिविजितौ चात्यन्तदीनौ च यौ राधाकृष्णगुणास्मृतेर्मधुरिमा नन्देन सम्मोहितौ वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालकौ राधाकुण्डतटे कलिन्दतनया तीरे च वंशीवटे प्रेमोन्मादवसादशेषदशया ग्रस्तौ प्रमत्तौ सदा गायन्तौ च कदा हरेर्गुणवरम् भावाभिभूतौ मुधा वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालकौ हे राधे व्रज देवी के चललिते हे नन्दसूनो कुटौ श्रीगोवर्धनकल्पपादपतले कालिन्दिवने कुटा घोषन्ताविति सर्वतो व्रजपुरे खेदेर्महाविवलौ वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालकौ वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालकौ हरि बोल। षड गोस्वामी अष्टकम की जय। We can have the prayers for you. Om Ajnanatimirandasya ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरोन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं त्वं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, can we go to this verse in the Bhagavad Gita? Where is that? 7:14. Yes, I'll just read the Sanskrit and then the translation and purport, and then we will have some slight discussion. This is one of the very famous verses of the Bhagavad Gita and the hope-giving verse. Daivi hieshu gunamai mama maya durattaya mame vaye prapadyante maya metan tarantite. Daiviheषु गुणमयी मम माया दुरत्यया मामे वै प्रपद्यन्ते मायामेतान् तरन्ति ते. Translation. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Supreme Personality of Godhead has innumerable energies, and all these energies are divine. Although the living entities are part of his energies and are therefore divine, due to contact with material energy, their original superior power is covered. Being thus covered by material energy, one cannot possibly overcome its influence. As previously stated, both the material and spiritual natures, being emanations from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are eternal. The living entities belong to the eternal superior nature of the Lord, but due to contamination by the inferior nature matter, their illusion is also eternal. The conditioned soul is therefore called Nitya Baddha or eternally conditioned. No one can trace out the history of his being becoming conditioned at a certain date in material history. Consequently, his release from the clutches of material nature is very difficult. Even though that material nature is an inferior energy, because material energy is ultimately conducted by the supreme will, which the living entity cannot overcome. Inferior material nature is defined herein as divine nature due to its divine connection and movement by the divine will. Being conducted by divine will, material nature, although inferior, acts so wonderfully in the construction and destruction of the cosmic manifestation. The Vedas confirm this as follows: Mayam tu prakritam vidyam, Mayinam tu Maheshwaram. Although Maya illusion is false or temporary, the background of Maya is a supreme magician. the personality of Godhead, who is Maheshwara, the supreme controller. Shveteshwara Upanishad 4.10. Another meaning of guna is rope. It is to be understood that the conditioned soul is tightly tied by the ropes of illusion. A man bound by the hands and feet cannot free himself. He must be helped by a person who is unbound, because a bound cannot help the bound. The rescuer must be liberated. Therefore, only Lord Krishna or his bona fide representative, the spiritual master, can release the conditioned soul. Without such superior help, one cannot be freed from the bondage of material nature. Devotional service or Krishna consciousness can help one gain such release. Krishna, being the Lord of the illusory energy, can order the insurmountable energy to release the conditioned souls. He orders his release out of his causeless mercy on the surrendered soul and out of his paternal affection for the living entities, who is originally a beloved son of the Lord. Therefore, surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord is the only means to get free from the clutches of the stringent material nature. Anything down? Yeah. The word Mam Eva are also significant. Mam means unto Krishna, Vishnu only, and not Brahma, Vishnu, Brahma, or Shiva. Although Brahma and Shiva are greatly elevated and are almost on the level of Vishnu, it is not possible for such incarnations of Rajogun, passion, and Tamogun, ignorance, to release the conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya. In other words, both Brahma and Shiva are also under the influence of Maya. Only Vishnu is the master of Maya, therefore, he alone can give freedom, release to the conditioned soul. The Vedas, Shveteshwara Upanishad confirms that this is a phrase, Tam eva viditva, or freedom is possible only by understanding Krishna. Even Lord Shiva affirms that liberation can be achieved only by the mercy of Vishnu. Lord Shiva says, Muktim pradata sarvesham Vishnur evana samshaya. There is no doubt that Vishnu is the deliverer of the liberation for everyone. Haribo. Thank you, Prabhu. Uh, yeah, it's okay. Bro, if you want to unshare, you can. That's also fine. Hare Krishna, Adinath Krishna, Prabhu, nice to see you. Please give your blessings, Prabhuji.
Nice to see you, Prabhu. Thank you for the welcome.
Hare Krishna. So, this is one of the nicest, one of my favorite verses in the Bhagavad Gita, wherein Krishna tells about how this material world, he calls it as divine, first of all. You know, there are the three energies of the Lord, the superior energy, the inferior energy, and the internal energy. Yeah, superior energy is the energy of superior energy is a spiritual world. Bahiranga Shakti, Antaranga Shakti, and Tataska Shakti. Bahiranga Shakti is the external energy of the, or Bahir, external energy of the Lord. And Antaranga Shakti is a spiritual world, it's the internal energy of the Lord. And Tataska Shakti is somewhere which is Tataska, means it's in the middle. So the living entities come under that situation. So in this world, everyone actually is trying very hard to look for happiness. If we see in the modern times, people go for entertainment. I mean, they want entertainment, they want happiness, they want peace of mind. All these things, they ultimately account for one thing, is that the living entity wants to be happy. People study, which they don't like to do, but they do it. They work, which many times they don't like their bosses. And people, they get married thinking that there will be happiness. So all the things that every living entity does, the living entity does, is actually the whole idea is to be happy. But we still see that the happiness that we try to find, that we try to look for, it actually somehow it eludes us. We can't find happiness at every moment. Like once there was a person, uh, it happened in one of the Rath Yatras, where a person, he actually, what he did is he was hungry. He went to the temple and he was hungry, and so he saw there was a halwa kept, butter halwa. It's very tasty. And he went, he tasted a little bit, and he really liked it. Then he took one full plate, mounted a full plate of halwa, and he kept eating it, and so much so he ate, and then at the end he was completely on the flat. And some other devotee came, and he saw that he was hardly alive actually. They took him to the doctor, and the doctor told, "Do you want to keep him alive?" He said, "Yeah, what do you mean?" He said, "Even if I were to put any medicine, there is not even a space for the capsule to go inside his throat. If at all I have to do something, I'll have to do his surgery, and I have to remove the halwa from his stomach, literally." And they did the whole surgery, and they removed at least 2.5 to 3 kgs of halwa from the stomach. So the whole idea is, in material world, everyone is trying to eat. What was his idea of that devotee is eating? That person's eating is that he will be happy. But somehow, what did he get? People chase after happiness, but he actually doesn't get any happiness. If you see, there is duality in this world. There is sukham, there is happiness, there is distress. There is honor, there is dishonor. There is day and night. So we can't expect just happiness that we can get in this world. It's not so easy to get it. And how much happiness do we want? If let's say if we ask someone, how much happiness do you want? This much, this much, or this much, this much? No, you will say that I want unlimited happiness. And what about suffering? We want zero suffering. So the living entity, when we are somehow or the other in this world, it's so designed that whenever we try to look for happiness, there is also suffering. If you carefully observe, like if I ask, if we have some issue with the teeth, where do we go? We go to a dentist. If there's some issue in the heart, then we go to a cardiologist. If there is some issue with the brain, then we go to neurologist. And if there is any issue with the bones, we go to orthopedician, ortho guy, like the bones. So if you literally see, for every part of the body, there is some doctor. There's someone who is there to take care of it. Some way or the other is there. So this actually shows that every part of the body can give us suffering. That's the reason there are actually doctors for it. And we see the external, if we ask people, what do we actually want? Whether we want external accomplishment or we want internal satisfaction. If we do a survey of people, 99% of the people will say that I want both of them. I want external accomplishment as well as internal satisfaction. Okay. But no one will just say that, okay, I want internal satisfaction. Because many of the times people are unaware that there is something called as internal happiness or internal satisfaction. So the point I'm trying to bring here is that when Krishna is saying that Daivi Heshu Gunamai Mama Maya Durataya, he says it's my energy. It's very difficult to overcome, is because we are given a tinge of happiness with a lot of distress, and the living entity gets addicted to that tinge of happiness and thinks that that is all is happiness. Srila Prabhupada gives the example of the person who he compares the happiness that is given in this world to a person who is actually who is a person who is actually, person is hang across his hands are tied against a wooden structure, and he's drowned in the ocean water, and he's seriously gasping for, more and more, he's gasping for air. And every 1 minute or so, when he's almost about to drown, he's brought up on the surface, and he thinks, I'm happy that I got a chance to breathe. So Srila Prabhupada says that the happiness in this world is actually compared to like that. It's actually compared to the happiness that is there in between the two sufferings. So that's actually the happiness that is provided. I mean, one may say that, we hear about birth, death, or birth, old age, disease, and death. But these events happen at certain point of time in life. They don't happen. Like I took a birth, that's it. I don't have any suffering. I mean, disease, once in a while it may come. Death is at the end. Old age is just before that. So it's not like a every regular thing, you know. But then there is always anxiety and trouble. I mean, obviously there is the Adhibautik, Adidevik, Adhyatmic kleshas are there, which are nothing but the miseries caused by the body, miseries caused by our own mind, miseries caused by other living entities, and miseries caused by nature. So these are there. But still, apart from that, if we see from our womb to tomb, there's always some anxiety or the other. There we always have some anxiety. Can someone think of what will be the anxiety when one is a small baby, or when one is a small child? There is anxiety that he might get sick, and he might eat something or the other. He might take some sharp objects, and then there is anxiety of when one grows, when one becomes a little, uh, you know, when he gets up like a teenager, let's say. There's anxiety of going to school, school pressure, peer pressure, and then after once gets married, or later in the later stage of life, when once has family and other things, then there's anxiety of taking care of family bills and everything. So they're in that way. And then later on, the anxiety is about health. One's health is in deteriorating situation, uh, things like that. So in that way, you see that there is anxiety in almost every stage of one's life, actually. Like, yeah, in every stage, literally from newborn child till till the time one is old. So there is somewhere or the other anxiety. So let's see what is it that is actually the cause of our anxiety. Actually, is the suffering that is coming upon us, is it automatic, or is someone inflicting upon us? Actually, is it the suffering that we is it something that is is it just taking care, is it someone else is doing it, or how is it, why is the suffering coming to a living entity? Actually, see, although everyone is actually looking for happiness, but they always get the opposite. We never ask for misery. No one prays for getting more miseries and things like that. So are we just supposed to endure this? Are we just supposed to go through these things without even asking? And many times most of the people do like that. They think this is a natural course of life and one has to actually just go on with it. But when someone becomes intelligent, he actually, that's where the human form of life starts, actually. That Athato Brahma Jigyasa, why is, when one starts questioning, that, okay, why is it I'm getting, why is it I'm suffering actually? Why is it I'm being pinched by, this material energies from every corner? So what is it that actually causes these things? Once Srila Prabhupada, Harishori Prabhu, he actually gives a nice pastime of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada says that, he says that once Prabhupada was sitting in his veranda, he was preparing for his, he was sitting in the veranda having his massage. And then Srila Prabhupada actually points to Harishori Prabhu and tells him that there is a nest, actually. There's a small sparrow that is making nest behind the electric circuit board. Srila Prabhupada saw that. And then he said that, that bird, they actually disturb him during the night. So he asked Harishori Prabhu to, help him remove that, actually. So help him remove that nest. So what that nest, the sparrow was actually working on building its nest, and Harishari Prabhu removed the nest, like here nest. And then the sparrow again came back. He saw that the whole nest is gone. Actually, there's literally nothing. Then what did it do? It actually again started, started stuffing something there to kind of make the nest and all, and then it started keep doing it. And then later on, what did the then it saw that again the nest is removed. The sparrow actually flew away from there along with its partner. And Srila Prabhupada was observing this whole scene actually. And then, what did the birds do? They actually, the birds went away, they got more straw, and again tried to make the nest in it actually. They again kept trying and all. Eventually, they were unsuccessful because that nest hole which was there, it was blocked. Then Prabhupada says that even though the birds, they actually had eyes, but they still could not see. They could not see that there was someone who was actually preventing them from their happiness. He was actually protecting he was kind of inhibiting their, making their house there actually. But they still kept on trying, thinking that, this adjustment will do, that adjustment will do, and then, we can make our house and we can be happy. So the same way, Srila Prabhupada says that, he was telling to Harishwar Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada mentions that the same way the materialistic person, though having eyes, they actually don't see. They are unable to see how the material energy is actually playing with them. It's supervising all their efforts. So actually, the material energy is actually, depending on the modes of modalities we are in, the material energy is facilitating different things. And the living entity is just simply struggling, trying to make adjustments, hoping to improve their lives and secure their place, here in this world, without understanding that Maya is watching them. Just a second. Yeah. So that's how actually the living entity is struggling. Since actually the superior the material nature is actually facilitating, it's making our happiness difficult. That's the job of Durga Devi. And if we see, so is it making sense what I'm trying to get to? I'm trying to point out how our happiness is actually not here in the external things here. When many times we say people, our happiness doesn't come from external things. So it actually comes from within us. So all the things, we may have so many desires. We living entity fights with so many desires. We have desires for senses, that we want to have something, we want to see something very nice, we want to hear something very nice, we want to, something nice for our sense gratification, like touch very nice, smell, and taste. And we also want to acquire a lot of things, land, money, so many things. Why? Because there's a feeling of inadequacy. The living, just like a fish, when it comes out of water, it feels inadequate because it's not in one's nature. He is inadequate, he feels very insecure. So the living entity, just like he comes out of the water, his out of his original situation, he tries to satisfy himself with so many different things. He tries to have land, money, paper, material comforts. He makes connection with big position he wants to be, all with the idea that he will be able to get over his inadequacy, insecurity, and his natural situation. He feels that is what is actually going to bring us. But unfortunately, how much ever we may try, our desires will never be fulfilled. There are two reasons for that. One is, let's say, just take an example. If this is Bay Area. Okay, let's say, if here everyone has a car. If everyone wants to have a Porsche, let's say, for example, everyone wants to have their own very expensive cars. But how much is it possible to have actually? How much resources are there? First of all, the resources are scarce, but the desires are unlimited. Resources are very scarce. Like, let's say, if we just go by logic, everyone to get Porsche and everyone wants to have a very big car, everyone wants to have a big plane, let's say, for example, it's not practical. It's not even possible, because the desires cannot be fulfilled with just by the commonsensical thing. We cannot actually fulfill all these. The living entity cannot. Everyone cannot fulfill all these desires. And the second reason is, our desires, they multiply faster than our then you can satisfy them. Like today, if I want a Porsche, tomorrow I want my own jet, and tomorrow then I want to have my separate planet. You know. So in that way, the desire can never be satisfied. Actually, Krishna tells in the Gita, it's like putting oil on fire. It's actually not going to, you know, flame it out, or the flame will not go out. Rather, it keeps on increasing and increasing. So that's how the lust is actually, that we want to enjoy. He wants more actually. Lust, anger, greed, so much is there. And even if you hand him everything of this world, one can still never be satisfied. Even for one small thing. Just like take the example of Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu had the entire, not just the material, the Bhuloka or something. He had the entire Swargaloka, Pataloka, and the earth, the planet, everything under his control. Just by his mere eyebrows, the sun would rise. And just by, if he decides that it should rain, it would rain automatically any time of the year, even if it's not the season. So that much of control and power he had. But just everyone was obeying him. Only one person didn't obey him, and that was Prahlad Maharaj. And that's what made him completely, he got completely disturbed because of that. And that's where he became completely frustrated, angry, and that's what caused his destruction. There's so many examples. Hiranyakashipu because lost his life because he couldn't actually take care of his desire for having many things. He couldn't satisfy it. And then you see Ravan. If you take the example of Ravan, who was another incarnation, I mean not incarnation, another of his expansion later on when in different yuga. Ravan, he lost his life because he carried another man's wife. Or basically, he took Sita Devi, who was Lord Rama's wife. So like that, we see there's so many, so many examples in the Shastras. We can see that how people who had so many insurmountable things, they couldn't satisfy themselves. They could never be happy in those things, or their material desires could never be fulfilled, or their material desires, or you can say that those material desires caused a lot of problems for them, or they lost everything. You can take the example of Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra was such a great king, but he just wanted to have that one cow of Vashishta, the Kamadhenu cow. He just wanted that one cow. And for that, he went through so many tribulations and trials. So many times he went through so many different things like that. So, so these are some of the things we can think of. Why we cannot be, why our desires cannot be fulfilled, or even if they get fulfilled, they actually cause us a lot of problems. I'll take a pause here. If anyone has any reflection or any thoughts, anything they would like to share.
Those who are in Zoom, they can unmute and they can ask if they want. Meanwhile, let me just go online and check if there are any questions or comments there.
Sure. Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, Prabhu. Online, I don't see any comments or questions, but a very
Yes.
wonderful topic you are, and you expanded it very well. It's like I remember when I was young, one of my uncle he told that this world is like an indrajal, like a jal, like a spider. Like in the the spider web, you see an insect, right? They go and they get stuck. They think there is food there, and then they go and they get stuck. And the more they move around their hands and all, the more they get stuck. They don't they are not able to come out of it.
Hmm.
They get stuck basically there more and more, and they ultimately die there, the insects. So when we are telling that, that we try to fulfill our desires, right? And then ultimately we, till the end moment of the life, we keep try to fulfill our desires, and then finally we die, basically, without our desires getting fulfilled. And
Yes. Thank you so
it's
much.
like that insect in that spider web.
Yes. Thank you.
Adinath Prabhu has it.
Yes, Adinath.
Hare Krishna, Madhava, Govinda Prabhu. Thank you for this discourse thus far. I liked when you were mentioning about the example of the halva. It reminded me of the 18th chapter, 38th verse of Bhagavad Gita, where it says that happiness, which is derived from contact of the senses with their objects and which appears like nectar at first, but poison at the end, is said to be of the nature of passion. So that's a prime example of that. It's a good reminder. And then I liked how you said from womb to tomb, that there were constantly, the anxiety is there in the form of the three kleshas, body, mind, other living entities, and then nature throughout our life. And then the sparrow and the nest example, that one reminded me of the 58th verse, where Krishna essentially states that if you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of material existence. But if you do not, and you instead act through false ego, then you will be lost. And that's lost words is synonymous with bewilderment. And so the sparrow is going back and back and back and chewing the chew. It's like one definition of insanity is repeating same action, expecting different result. So I really like that example.
Which verse you're talking about?
This is 58 of the 18th chapter.
18th chapter. Okay.
Yeah, 58 specifically. If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all of the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. And so that one was really nice in connection with the sparrow. And then you were talking about lust also, Prabhu. And this is in the 3rd chapter, 38 text. As fire is covered by smoke, as the mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust. And then it goes on to say that mind intelligence they're the sitting places of this lust. And so the strong propensity to enjoy. And there's essentially the next verse says that it's never satisfied. And like you said, with the oil and the fire, it burns more and more. So thank you so much for these nectarian examples and verses.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for enlightening with such wonderful verses from the Gita. Haribol. Thank you. Okay, let's continue. So some of there's some small, we already covered quite a few things, Adinath Prabhu. I'll just go through some of the things which I had in my mind. See, another thing to know is the material objects, they actually cannot satisfy our heart. The reason being, see, changeable, how do I put it? Whatever is something that is changeable and that is perishable, that cannot give lasting happiness. You see, we are Sat Chit and Ananda, which means we are eternal being. A temporary thing cannot satisfy something that is eternal. It's like a very mismatch. It's like you're trying like the insanity of this world is that people try to satisfy themselves by temporary things. Like Prabhupada, many times he gives the example, like if someone sees a beautiful mannequin, is that right? The mannequin of a beautiful female, one actually gets, one may just get so attracted to it, but it's actually just a mannequin. One may, until one realizes it. So it's like that actually. And our minds, our this happiness thing is actually coming from the mind. That okay, this is what is actually going to give me happiness. In the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, we have the story of the Brahmana. What's his name? Avanti Brahman. Yes, Avanti Brahman. He says he actually went through a lot of suffering in his life. He was a very miser at one point of time in his life, and later on, uh, he lost everything. And then finally, he was given. He went was suffering so much at that point of time. Somehow, by the grace of Lord, he got the realization that he should actually surrender to Krishna. And later on, when he was traveling across, people used to trouble him so much. They used to beat him. They used to throw stones at him. They used to pass urine at him, and so much so that said people used to pass foul air at him. Even after going through all these sufferings, at that point of time, he mentions, then he analyzes, what is the cause of my suffering? Why am I suffering? And then he comes to the conclusion that his suffering is not because of any, it's not provided by karma, it's not by material nature. It's actually all coming because of my own mind. So the whole idea is that our happiness or the suffering that is there, it's actually coming because of our own mind actually. So that's something we can take in to picture. And if we analyze more about the nature of the material pleasure, we will see that the material pleasure is actually very limited. One may ask, someone tells, hey, I'm enjoying life. It's there's a natural answer of the material world, actually, in the material world. But when we ask them, okay, how much time you're going to enjoy and how long will you enjoy? And let's say if I have gulab jamuns, today I'm talking so much about sweets. If I have gulab jamun and if I give one gulab jamun, I like it. Second gulab jamun, I take it, I like it. Third gulab jamun, I'll say, I mean, if it's me, I may take, okay, third is also okay. Fourth, then it may say, no, okay, that's a lot. The fifth, it will be no, fifth, sixth. So that's even the economics, they actually say that law of diminishing utility. That if you keep taking more and more things, then you say, no, okay, I'm done with it, I'm sufficiently done. So that's how the material pleasure is actually. There may be so many hotels that we may see in the city, like 50 items in the menu. Like, we may just try to go and just like a cow, one may go the cow that is tied to the pole, he cannot enjoy what is the grass beyond the radius. Even the man who is super wealthy, he may not be able to enjoy in all the 50 restaurants. They may have some health issues or whatever it is. So that's how the material pleasure is. And another way to, like how you mentioned before, is the Madhinath Prabhu about how the material pleasure is like chewing the chewed. It's also like another nature of the material pleasure is actually it's like chasing the mirage. If you try to, if you go and see, where is the place where you can find the best mirage? When we actually are going in a train, when many times we see that the train, that the two lines are merging, but it never happens. It never happens. Or you see a mirage when you're driving on the road and you see that there's some water, you feel that there's some water on outside. But actually, when you go there, you find there's nothing. So same way, that is actually how the happiness that we see in this material world, it seems like that. Once, I think there's a nice example which the Prabhupada also gives about, crane. He spends so much time in the water standing, and he tries to find for fishes. He doesn't find any fish. So he looks around and he finds the bull's testicle is hanging. And he thinks that that's a fish. And he goes and picks it up and he thinks, oh, it's so easy to get a fish. But when he goes there, he gets kicked by the bull. So that's how the one who is trying to pursue happiness in this world, that's how it actually ends up. It's like you try so much, it's never there. It's like water everywhere, not a drop to drink. It's like that in the material world. And you see, another nature of the material pleasure is actually it ceases, it stops being pleasure after some time actually. There's so many, like, we may go to a particular, that's why you see people keep traveling to different hill stations or different locations to go. If I were to tell that someone, oh, please go to the same location every time, you go every day, they'll say, okay, I'm done with it now. I'm bored about it. Or let's say if a newly wedded couple, there's so many ideas, fancy ideas about after the marriage, but then later everything comes to it's reality. So that's the whole point I'm trying to make is the charm of the material pleasures. They are actually short lived. They are not there for too long. They're just there for some time, and then they turn into boredom or dryness after some time actually. Is it making sense?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. Okay.
Good examples.
Yeah. So, and another thing to know about this is some material pleasure, like how Adana Pro mentioned, that it's like chewing the chewed. It is something that you keep eating again and again, but it's like a chewing gum. You keep chewing it, chewing it, chewing it, but at the same time, at the end, it's just like you're chewing, but there's no sweetness in it. At the end, your jaws keep just hurt. That's how the material pleasure is actually. So the whole idea, we are discussing this wisdom from the Gita and the philosophy, is to actually understand or to change our perspective. Right now, our perspective is such that I think that everyone else failed, but maybe I'll find something. I will find some happiness here. But it's actually just like you see the bottle. If there's a very nice blue bottle which has it looks very nice. It looks like something that you can drink. It looks like a nectar. But then, if on the cover of the bottle there's a cover envelope, there's a cover which says poison, then we'll actually pay heed to that more, not rather than seeing what my eyes senses feel like taking. Because we have to trust the manufacturer who actually have designed that product. Same way, Krishna is actually the designer of this material world. He knows what he has given us here. He is actually very clearly mentioning it in the Gita. In so many places he mentions that it's actually not a place for you to enjoy. That's like if you go to if you want education, one goes to Vidyalaya, very place where you get education. And if someone wants to, the word alay, it means a place for something. And if what else is there? Vidyalaya, and then there is, and then there is, I mean, what is,
Meghalaya. Meghalaya.
Nihal, sorry?
Pustakalaya. Pustakalaya.
Pustakalaya, a place where you get books. Thank you, Amita Mataji.
Library.
And this, come again?
Vidyalaya. Vidyalaya.
Correct. Yeah, Vidyalaya, and so many different places wherever that ala is there, that refers to a place to go. So same way, like you this material Krishna described it as Dukhalaya, meaning there is a place of dukh. What do we get here? What do we sell? Dukh or distress. So that's how the material world is. Another nature is another nature of the material world is that it's actually it's a place of duality. It's a place of duality, like I was mentioning in the very beginning, that how you cannot get just one thing here. It's like always day and night, life, death. There's summer, winter. There's pleasure, pain, joy, sorrow, happiness, distress, association, disassociation. These are like two different facets of the same coin. Does it mean that the object which gives us happiness, which gives us pleasure, will also give you pain? So there is that that's somehow that is inbuilt in this material world. So that's why the first lesson that Krishna actually tells to Arjun to take it, or the first instruction which Krishna gives Arjun is, he says, be freed from this duality. Tolerate these things. Don't. What is that verse in the second chapter, which mentions this? I'm just losing the memory. So can you help me with that? In the second chapter, where it mentions that Krishna is telling to tolerate the dualities of this material world.
Sitoshna.
Sitoshna Sukha Dukkha. Sitoshna Sukha Dukkada. Agama Paino Anityas. Tam Titiksha Swabharata. So Krishna is telling, the first thing is telling to tolerate. So that's the first lesson which Krishna is actually giving, which means that this world, you can't escape from the dualities of this world. The whole idea is we have to expand our consciousness. We have to look beyond the duality of this thing and to understand there's a higher, much higher reality. And another thing to know about this world is that it's actually a relative place. I always like this very much. I once thought about it. When I was in my 6th to 7th grade, the marks which I used to get in my exam, if I get 2 marks less, they're so critical to me. I would be like so worried about it. I lost 2 marks. And I know for something teacher didn't give the marks or whatever. But do I actually care about it now? I had to think about it. Or do I care about when I was entering into engineering? That something happened which affected me so much at that point of time. But now I don't even think about it, because so many things are relative. But now what's important, now what is happening to me, I might think this is the most important thing that is going to happen. But if we actually think logically, after a few years, I may not be even thinking about these things so much. I may just consider this to be another thing, which is, I may just laugh about it, because it may not be may not carry anything to me. So same way, the many of the situations and circumstances that we go through, they're actually very relative. And if we just look from the bigger picture, the most bigger picture of the eternity, this life itself is so temporary, with all the different situations that we are going through. It's so relative to what we have gone through over the eternity, actually, when we compare it with eternal point of view. Just like if when I am driving the car and I'm stuck in the traffic, I'm actually really stuck. I mean, I don't know what to do. I'm worried about this guy coming in from the other side, the other guy coming in from the other side. And I'm trying to see when can I take the exit very quickly. I'm trying to see where is the fastest lane to go. But just imagine if my car is picked up by a helicopter and picks it up and it takes me up, 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 up. And when I see it from the top, it actually doesn't make any difference for me, Same way, if we carry our consciousness, if we uplift our consciousness, just like the helicopter is uplifting that car, it just lifts it. Same way, if we uplift our consciousness above all these different situations and dualities, things that we go through, then one can actually reach one's destination even quicker. So everything becomes so insignificant in the eyes that we are going through, actually. So it's this is actually one of the ways by which one can be happy, actually. This is a way to be, in a way, happy in the sense like one may not get affected, and then one will reach the destination quickly. And yeah, like we read in the verse in the Bhagavad Gita in the very beginning, that how how our happiness is actually comes by when we actually take shelter of Krishna. When we take shelter of something that is imperishable and which is permanent, that can actually make us happy. Because the nature of the living entity, just like I was mentioning in the very beginning, that the fish, when it is taken out of water, it cannot be satisfied with even millions of dollars which he gets, or nice food and everything, and nice apartment or complex or whatever house. Those things, they are required. They are required as a means of our necessity, but they are not the object of our happiness. They cannot give us happiness and satisfaction. Our happiness and satisfaction can only come when we engage in the service of Krishna, or by in devotional service. See, there are, the Gita, Krishna talks about there is bhogi, there is tyagi, and there is a bhakta, or a devotee. If let's say, for example, the key to happiness is, I'll just take, if let's say if we are going on the road and you see that some person, he drops his wallet on the floor. You see that a bhogi, what he will do, he will wait for that person to go away, and he'll go and pick it up, and he'll enjoy with that. And then a tyagi, what he do? He will go, he will see that, oh, it doesn't belong to me, he just goes away. But a devotee or a bhakta, what does he do? He actually goes, he sees that, oh, this purse, it doesn't belong to me, it belongs to someone else. He takes the purse and he gives it to him, goes and gives it to him. So that is how actually a devotee is, like a bhogi or enjoyer. He takes whatever he finds around, he will take it and he'll enjoy it for himself, whatever the resources are there of the nature. And a tyagi, he will just renounce things. He'll renounce it. He says, okay, naiti. And bhakta or a devotee, he actually uses everything in the service of Krishna. The six Goswamis, they actually taught us that, and how to use everything in the service of the Lord. Whatever energies that we see, or whatever situation, resources, everything can actually be used in the service of the Lord. So that is actually the key to happiness. But just with a caveat that one should also know how to use it. Otherwise, one might get burnt. I remember once I was with Vishishika Maharaj in Vrindavan, and he gave a very nice Bhagavatam class mentioning the similar point about, how we should use the whole world is actually, all the resources of this world are meant to be used in the service of the Lord. And one should engage it like that. Our great acharyas like Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur, six Goswamis, they all use it like that. And then later at the end, me and my brother and a couple of devotees, we were driving in the car. And my brother asked him a question, how can one use it, if one is unsure of, because it's like material energy is like suck, it can just suck you in actually, just like how you're mentioning, it's like a dal initially. It can just trap you. How can one do it? Then Maharaj said that you should know how to, if you are not careful with the electricity, then it can actually even give you a shock. So you should be really expert in using that way. Unless and until you are strong enough, you should not try to use that. Better is to have a safe distance. If you cannot use it, at least don't disengage. don't disengage with it, and make cause issues for one's own self, like that. And yeah, so I was thinking of, I have a couple more points to make. It's 8:10. Let me actually complete. I will just take another 5-10 minutes, and then we can take a little bit more. Like, you see, this is, Prabhupada actually gives a very nice example, of how, you see, we are getting, there are multiple forces from where we are actually being, we are in a way, how do you say, a person in ignorance who doesn't have the knowledge, he doesn't understand what to do actually. But if someone has the knowledge of the Gita, he can understand that the suffering that is coming from the material world, the kicks that one receives on the Durga Devi, the Shakti of the Lord, They're actually, in a way, a reminder for one to actually surrender to Krishna seriously. Prabhupada gives an example of what, there is a Dhananjay, Praharendra Dhananjay. So what he does is, there was one gentleman. He had some 8 or 9 of them, 8 or 9 daughters. He had 8 or 9 daughters, and a son-in-law was there. So when they all actually came, he was giving them nice food and shelter. They go to one place, their son-in-law, and all of them, they go at the house. It's like, the guest comes, when they come, but they don't know when they leave. It becomes really difficult. So initially he served them very nicely, and then later on he saw that they are not ready to leave at all. Then one day he stopped giving them salt. Then one of them left. Okay, he said, "Oh, they are not treating us nicely." Then I think we left. And the second day, they didn't provide him some other thing. They just provided him some basic food. The other guy, some other guy left. In that way, every day one or the other was leaving. But there was this one guy who was not ready to leave at all. His name was Praharendra Dhananjay. So Prabhupada says that finally he had to be literally beaten for him to leave. So Prabhupada says that material nature, or similarly, the living entity, or I should say not the living entity, one who is intelligent, they actually understand that, oh, this is not the place for me to be here, for too long. So the material nature keeps giving kicks one after another, one after another. But if the living entity doesn't understand even after that, then it's like, really something has to be done about it. So the point I'm trying to make is that same way, just like when the living entity is beaten by material nature, he gets some sanity to surrender to Krishna. But that only happens when one actually has knowledge. That's why you see, I think Vaisheshika Prabhu mentions that suffering or difficulties are actually one of the doorways for not suffering. Actually, frustrations are the doorways for liberation or enlightenment. So Maharaj has one. He gives a talk on that. So it's actually very, in a way, it's nice. We can all see in our own personal lives that there was some. I mean, I'm not saying that it should happen, but we have seen that. I can see in my personal life that when there was some difficulty that came upon, that actually became an impetus for one to become serious in Krishna consciousness, to take to bhakti more seriously. Somewhere or the other, that somewhere or the other, it actually kicks in. So material nature, it actually does that. But for that to happen, one needs to have some knowledge. One needs to have the association of devotees to process the difficulties and suffering that comes in one life, actually. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult. And one should understand that the suffering that one receives these are actually not caused by God. It's actually becoming because of our own desire to enjoy separately from Him. A child who wants to leave his parents' custody, then he'll naturally suffer. He will always be frightened. He will always be anxious. He'll always be, like very, there's a story of the prodigal son in the Bible where it mentions that the boy, he wanted to leave his parents and he wanted to enjoy. He told his father that, okay, please give my share of my, whatever is my share, please give me. His father said, no, you be with me. You will be happy. I'll give you everything. He said, no, I want to go separately. And then he took his share. I want to enjoy separately. He took his share. He went, and then he enjoyed. He was spending all his money. And when he had money, so many other friends came, and so-called friends came to him because they thought he could actually help facilitate their enjoyment as well. And then he kind of tried to be happy, and later on he found that eventually all his savings was going down, actually. And ultimately he had nothing with him. And as soon as he had nothing, none of his friends were there with him. And then that time he was in a very miserable situation. Then at that point, he actually was in such a situation that for his survival, he was working with in a, what do you call it, a cow poultry. basically taking care of the horses and pigs. And first place for him to sleep was he had to sleep on the with the donkeys or with the pigs or something like that. And he had to take the same food as the horse was taking. And he was feeling so miserable. And that time he remembered his father. And his father told, you can be with me. If he told that his father had told him at that point of time that if you need something, anytime you need me, I'm always there for you. At that time, his father, then he decided to go back to his village. He goes back to the village. And that time, when he was just near the entrance, someone actually, one of the family members, one of the members of the village, they actually see him. And they go and inform his father that, your son is here. And as soon as the father is so jubilant and happy that he actually goes running and he actually embraces him, hugs him, he takes care of him, gives him nice facilities, takes care, gives him proper food. The same way, as the prodigal son, when he actually returns home back to his father, he gets everything. He gets all the facilities, all his needs are taken care of. Then a living entity, when he surrenders to Krishna, when he turns towards Krishna, he will actually be taken care of very nicely. He will be maintained. Krishna says, Bhoktaram Jagatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. He tells that I'm the enjoyer, Bhoktaram Jagatapasam Sarvaloka. I am the maintainer of everyone, including the living entity itself. And Krishna tells another verse in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Mamai Vamso Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana Manashastrani Indriyani Maya Tarantit. Is that right? Mamai Vamso Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Anyways, the whole point is Mamai Vamso Jiva Loke. Krishna says that these conditions, Krishna says in a very pitiful way. Mamai Vamso Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. These living entities, they are struggling because of with their mind and senses. They are my eternal fragment, They are mine. So don't worry. And it kind of tells in a very nice way. I really always like that he actually always, very lovingly, he says, they're struggling. They have their mind and senses. They're struggling with it, but still they're my parts, So please don't worry. Please, don't be afraid of that. So in a way, Krishna actually takes care of it. And then the forgetfulness of Krishna, Chaitanya Charitamrita says that why does Chaitanya Chandra also brings this up, that Krishna bhuli sei vanadi bahir mukhe atheva maya tare de ye atheva maya tare de yes sorry
Japotiya dhare.
Japatiya dhare. Yes, thank you. And Krishna, basically the whole idea is that when a living entity turns away from Krishna, that's when he actually gets into darkness. So our real happiness is when we actually again come back to Krishna, when we turn towards Krishna and surrender unto him. And so for surrendering, there are many, we can try our best. We can, there is our Acharyas, Srila Prabhupada has given very kindly and mercifully a lot of very easy way to become Krishna conscious. That is by having association with devotees, by chanting Hare Krishna, by reading the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. Prabhupada says that if one takes to reading his Srila Prabhupada books very seriously, then one will not be affected by the external potency of Maya actually. If that's actually something Prabhupada mentions that many times, that he is actually giving this Bhagavatam and all these books, literatures, so that one can fix one mind on Krishna. And many times Prabhupada actually mentions about the futility of the material world, just so that we get the impetus to surrender to Krishna more. Otherwise, many times the impetus to surrender to Krishna doesn't come until we realize the futility of what we are. We only look for something better when we understand what we are having is not good. When we actually know that our situation is in a precarious way, then we want to seek something that is better than us. That's a natural tendency. If I'm, why people want to have better economic development, better economic situation, or better apartment, better house, is because we always look up to having something better in life. The same way that's somehow the inherent nature of the living entity. Obviously, that satisfaction, the betterness that gets fulfilled when it's in connection with Krishna, when our original relationship is revived. So yeah, I mean, we can all just try in our humble capacity to practice. Just like Damodar month is coming up, we try, see, a devotee for a karmi, he depends on his a karmi or I would say a yogi. He depends on his own efforts to attain the supreme. He thinks that by his own efforts he can actually attain the supreme. And a bhakti yogi, a bhakta, he actually he does his endeavor, but at the same time he is dependent on the Supreme Lord. So there is endeavor from the divine entity side, and there is dependency of the grace of the divine. So that is actually what makes the one a bhakti yogi. That one does everything. It's a path of grace. Bhakti yoga is a path of grace, where we actually are dependent on the grace of the Lord. Like the Damodar Leela that we are going to have, Damodar month, which is going to come up next month. It very nicely signifies this pastime of putting our effort and depending on the grace of the Lord. Where when Lord Mother Yashoda tries to bind Krishna with the rope was always 2 inches too short. Those 2 inches, the acharyas say that those 2 inches, Mother Yashoda kept trying for the whole day. And at the end, when it was late in the evening, when Krishna saw that Mother Yashoda was been profusely trying and she's sweating, at that time Krishna allowed himself to be bound. So same way, when Krishna sees sincere endeavors of the living entity to practice Krishna consciousness, to become his devotee and bhakti, to do his bhakti, at that time Krishna bounds himself up to his devotee. He gives himself to his devotee. So both our efforts and Krishna's grace, both are required in the path of bhakti yoga. And one of the nice, if this material world is compared as when many times when we go outside and we see a house which is next to says that be aware of dogs. Many places it goes. But when we go inside the house, we don't see the board and we just go inside. And the dog runs behind us, chasing behind us. At that time, we are just in a very precarious situation. He might just bite us. At that very moment, if the owner of the house comes and he happens to be your friend, and he sees your situation and he just gives a whistle, and he just tells the dog, as soon as he hears him, he calls him, the dog runs away. Same way, the material world, the dog of the material world, Durga Devi, I mean, not in any way disrespecting it, but when she is pushing her tridents on the living entity, but when Krishna gives a whistle, please come back, turn away, then he can the kleshas can go away. So we just have to depend on, we can just be dependent on the grace of the Lord, so that we can actually connect. When we connect with him, then actually Krishna takes care of him. And that can be done by sincerely, one of the easiest ways, by chanting Hare Krishna regularly. Okay, Prabhu, I will take a pause here. And yes.
Thank you, Prabhu. Very wonderful lecture, very nice examples. I will request people on Zoom, if they want, they can unmute and they can ask questions or provide comments. So
Yes.
I'm going and checking online. Okay, there you go. Jose Prabhu has a question.
Hare Krishna. Dandava pranams, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Very nice lecture, Prabhu. I just wanted to thank you for blessing me with such a nice lecture tonight. Especially,
me that I'm so entangled to the material world. And I always appreciate your the examples you gave me, especially when you were saying how you were going to school and you had these negative experiences. And at that moment, it must have been very tough for you, but now it's just kind of, it doesn't really bother you. Similarly, I feel like this whole, these couple of minutes I've been with you, my mind has been, thinking about other things like, oh my God, Christmas and the bills and stuff. And I get caught up, and I totally forget that this hour that I'm with you might be the most important thing in my whole life. And I'm totally persuaded by something that is in the future or in the past, I just felt very present with today's discussion. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu, for that nice point. Actually, it said that just by hearing the Bhagavatam, the Krishna Katha, then all the miseries, at least at that point of time, they go away. So thank you for your kindness. Yes, Adinath Prabhu.
Thank you, Madhava Govind Prabhu. I have one question in regard to the verse that you started with so nicely, prapadyante, to start to surrender, and then you mentioned dukkha ale is the place to go, and dukkha, it's miserable or distressful. So for example, suppose there's a newcomer and they're listening for the first time, and you're saying chanting and reading, and suppose they don't know what it is, or perhaps someone does. How does one start and make it practical for them, and also practical in the sense that it's long-term, they can actually sustain it? What's one thing they can do and actually develop a little bit of taste for something like that? Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, initially, if they get association of Adinath, Krishna Prabhu, then it becomes very easy. One thing is definitely this, people actually don't become devotees by philosophy initially. It's actually by the love and care of the devotees that actually inspires them to take to bhakti. When I first heard this, I remember I was in my 10th grade. My brother, he actually told me, I was driving on the vehicle, he was driving, and I was sitting behind him. And he was talking about, hey, you know what? This human life, there are 84 lakh species of life, and you're just getting human form. Life is so rare. I said, you please drive carefully, otherwise this will be very rare. So the point is, obviously, I became, everyone's journey. There are very few devotees who actually become impelled by the philosophy to take to Krishna consciousness immediately. They actually take to Krishna consciousness because of the love, the care that actually the devotees give them. That's what initially inspires them. And later on, the philosophy slowly starts sticking in. We talk about the material world being a place of misery and things like that. But this is one aspect of the Krishna conscious philosophy. But the other aspect of the Krishna conscious philosophy is that there is actually positive things that you can actually achieve just by practicing. You can control our mind and so many things that can happen, which people go through in their day-to-day lives in the initial phase, like people appreciate those things. But yeah, in long term, yes, Prabhupada stressed so much on the philosophy. And many times Prabhupada's books, if one reads them carefully, Prabhupada actually gives everything clean and cut. There is no buttering, he kind of makes it very clear. But what is most essential is the love and care that the new person gets from the devotee. Actually, that's what makes them take to Krishna consciousness. I hardly know in my personal connections or anyone, maybe one or two or very few people who actually became devotees by being inspired by the philosophy. Philosophy is the best, there's no doubt about it. But it is the purity, the sincerity, the care, and the love that they receive. That's what actually inspires them to take it.
Yes, Prabhu, that is an excellent point you made when you are saying that. I was reminded of this meeting of Lord Vishnu with Prithu Maharaj. Remember when he was almost about to do the 100th? Yeah, then he was somehow stopped, and then then Brahma came and then he advised him, right? And then Vishnu came and he brought Indra also along with him, because he was the real culprit who was doing all that mess. And then he said that he wanted them to be friends, build friendship, right? And the one point one thing Lord Vishnu told Prithu Maharaj is exactly the point what you are saying, is what attracts me. I find you very attractive because of your qualities. So that is exactly the point you are making, is, when we meet other devotees, when we see those good qualities in them, like the compassion, the patience, right, with all the faults we have, and they are so patient with us, right, and their compassion, right, I mean, this they don't have, I mean, they are already happy, right, where they are, right, they probably don't have anything, but still they are happy, right, because but they see our situation as a miserable situation, right, although we have a lot, but we're still in misery, and they are very compassionate, right, they understand our situation, and they are patient, they patiently work with us, right.
Yes.
So
Prabhupada actually was
forgiving, they are very forgiving also, and that is what Prithu Maharaj, Lord Vishnu was telling Prithu Maharaj, that
true.
I like that you forgave Indra, basically.
Yes. Actually, Prabhupada, when you see, when he was on the Vyasasana, he was like a lion. Speaking, home material world, there's no happiness and all. But when he stepped down out of the Vyasasana, he would care for devotees so much. If some devotee had any, personal, he was injured. Like, I remember Prabhupada was in Mayapur, he was having Guru Puja. Everyone was chanting Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. And devotees were coming forward and offering flowers to Prabhupada. And one devotee had a cut in his finger or leg, I think, somewhere. And Prabhupada saw him and said, "What happened?" He said, "Prabhupada, I got hurt." And Prabhupada, there on the Vyasasana only, he started writing, what he should take, what medicine he should apply there, so it will be cured.
Yeah.
And he gave him some money also to go and bring the medicine, something like that, they said. And the devotee was so touched. Till date, he actually remembers how much Prabhupada actually cared for him. Like that. So, yes, Prabhu, that point is very inspiring, actually.
Let me see one final. Okay, so there are no questions, so it's already 8:30. So
thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much, everyone, for tolerating me, tolerating my
wonderful lecture. Wonderful. Very good examples and all.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Manchakripatarupisya kripa sindhu bhaya vacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vishnubhyo namo namaha.
Madhava Govinda Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Prabhu ki
Jai.
jai. Ashramada ki jai.
All
Adinath Krishna Prabhu ki jai. Mamita Mata ji ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so
Gaur
much.
Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Okay, Prabhu, we will now close the session for the Wednesday. Thank you for joining.
Hare Krishna.